So I am so thrilled to be here. Maybe by way of introduction, I'll just tell you, I've been doing education technology since 1981. The reason I'm doing it is an accident. I don't even like technology. But I was running a school for very difficult students. And one of my students came back to school during summer vacation, and he broke in to use a computer. Not to steal the computer, but to program. And he was caught, and I was sent to punish him for breaking and entering. And I was fascinated that he wanted to learn. He just wanted to learn. And he was a dropout. He had quit school. And here he was in the summer studying on his own. And I was fascinated by that. It just struck me how odd that one of our students who really hated school, he just hated school, would come back when there's no teachers and sit down and learn. And that day changed my life, and ever since then, I've been trying to figure out why do some students, not all, but some students, are willing to learn on their own with technology in a way that they don't do that without technology. So that's why I'm here. Student breaks in, and I become fascinated. So since then, I have to tell you that I thought schools would change. I thought the new technologies are so powerful to help children manage more and more of their own learning that we would have changed schools to meet the power of the technology. But this is my opinion, and it's only about the United States. I don't know about Jordan. But in the United States, we have not changed. Schools look exactly the same as they did before technology. Basically, no change. And I call that the $1,000 pencil problem, where we use technology to do what we used to do without changing the work. But in almost any other business, medicine, architecture, engineering, on and on and on and on and on, the work has changed. There really is only one field left that has not changed the work, and that's education. We have stayed the same. My country stayed the same. So you'll have to ask yourself, how big is this? Is it about having $1,000 pencils? Do you know what I mean by $1,000 pencils, where we do old work with new tools, or should we change the work, right? That's really the question of the day. And you can guess my answer. I think we should change the work. So what I'm going to do is show you my sense of changing the work. So this is not a technology training session. It's a change the work session. You need to know technology. And maybe for those of you who want to learn how to do something technically, I could sit with you maybe at lunch and during breaks and teach you. I don't need to take lunch or breaks. But I'm really going to focus on the design of problems. Okay, off we go. So, let me just ask, how many of you are elementary, primary teachers? So I get a sense of who's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. And middle school, what we would call, what do you call middle school? The same? Ah, good. Middle school, again. And secondary, do you call it secondary? Well, it's balanced. Higher education, university, 1, 2, wow. Do you have government also, general government? No, good, all right. How many people are technology people? You support teachers, you do technology, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, there's a lot of you, great, okay. You can teach me too. We'll all work together. I used to know everything, by the way. And now I know less and less every day. Do you ever feel like that? You used to know a lot more, and now you know less and less every day. That's, maybe you have to be my age to do that, but I know less and less every day. So certainly don't hesitate to teach me. Okay, off we go. So let me tell you how my thinking, how I think about these things. I don't think the real revolution is technology. It's not about technology. It's about information. So I'm going to change the word. I think words are important. It's not about the box. It's not about the tool. It's about the quality of information. That's the revolution. Information. We now have access to information we have never had. So, big questions. Do students get the right information at the right time to be the best learner? Do they get the right, not the right technology, the right information? Do teachers get the right information at the right time to be the best teachers? Do families get the right information at the right time to be the best partner in learning, the family? And of course, those of you who are leaders, we ask the same, do leaders get the right information? I would put to you the answer is no to all 4 of those questions. We don't give students the right information, we don't give teachers the right information, and so forth. So I'm going to focus on what's the right information. Information, like we're doing now, but it's one has to do with relationships. Information is power. If I have information and you do not have information, it's possible I have more power over you. So the balance of who has the information and when do they get it, that's about power. And in a social setting like a school, it's about relationships. So the other question to ask is, do we have the right relationships? Do students have the right relationships with students, teachers with teachers, teachers with students, school with parents? The other series of questions to ask, very important series, is about relationships. Here, I'll give you an example. Thank you. Harvard University is doing some research on what prevents students from learning, what gets in their way. And one of their discoveries is this thing called the curse of knowledge. I don't spell well, so Google helps me. Curse of knowledge. Have any of you heard of this? Curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge basically says that Harvard professors know too much to understand a first-time learner. And that a first-time learner sometimes can help teach a first-time learner more effectively than a Harvard professor. Makes no sense. This makes no sense. You hire Harvard professors because of their knowledge, not because their knowledge is in the way. Makes no sense. Except I believe it. I believe this. I believe that very often when a student does not understand something that happens in a classroom, they will ask a friend for help and not the teacher. Because the friend can explain things in a way that a first-time learner can understand from a child to a child. Whether you're 5 or 19. So this fascinates me. I am fascinated by the curse of knowledge because if it's true, then we should be building relationships between students, first-time learner. That changes the questions you would ask in a school if you believed it to be true. If you don't believe it to be true, then don't worry about it. The teacher teaches and the students receive the knowledge from a very gifted, knowledgeable teacher. So relationships change depending on who controls the flow of information. And I'm convinced that children can teach children in new ways and that we should ask that question. How do we build teamwork between children? Because a lot of technology in my country, it's all about helping teachers teach better. It's all about teaching teachers how to use technology to be better teachers. But I think we should teach children to help each other also. That's a relationship problem, not a technology problem. Okay. We're okay? How many of you, very few Americans, would know the curse of knowledge? This is very new, very unusual. You've heard of it?
Yeah, usually sometimes they term it as the curse of the killing of the creativity of schools and the murder of creativity of the mind.
That's a little bit more extreme. The killing of creativity. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The murder of thought is a very violent way of saying. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you could say that. Yes. In fact, maybe I'll show you a video from Harvard. I'll show you what this looks like. I'll show you what this looks like. Yeah. I have a friend who is a Harvard professor. That was his classroom a few years ago. He teaches physics. Do you notice something about all the students? They all have a laptop. Every student has a laptop. This would be a $1,000 pencil classroom. No change. The teacher's giving the same lecture he's given for 20, 30 years. The students, the same arrangement, but they have $1,000 pencil instead of paper. It's exactly the same. No change. I have sat in that room. My friend, his name is Eric Mazur, professor of physics.
Students learn very little while they're sitting
There he is.
in such a space.
Hang on, I have to change my, get rid of iTunes. Where's the music coming from? kill it there, murder it as you would. No, I turned it off. The music is still playing. Oh my, no. It's coming from somewhere. It's coming from me. But where? I don't know where the music is coming from. Oh, it must be there, yeah? There it is. Wow. It's a Minecraft project. Okay. Go Minecraft. Anyway, this is Eric. So I want to show you. Oh, look at this photograph. Play the beginning.
Main goal was to create a course where students could take ownership of their learning. In other words, they don't learn physics because we want them to learn physics or we tell them to learn physics. No, they learn physics because they...
Do you see what's happening to the laptops there? They're closed. They're closed. $1,000 pencil classroom, they're all open. Because students have to record what the professor knows. The current classroom, after he thought about it, laptops are mostly closed all 3 hours of class. That fascinates me. You also see a lot of students standing up. They're not sitting down. They're moving around. They're talking to each other. They're teaching each other. The professor is no longer transferring knowledge to the class. It's so different. It's unbelievable how different the relationships are if you look at this photograph and the previous one where they're all sitting in rows. Change in relationships. The technology is the same. No change in the technology. But it is a change in relationships. Can we agree? Do you see what I see? Okay. So for those of you who are leaders, I think one of the most important questions to ask is what are the quality of our relationships in our schools? You don't have to agree that this is good learning, but I think the general question is an interesting question. What are the quality of our relationships? In Singapore, they have a phrase, teach less, learn more. You can Google that. Teach less, learn more. You'll probably come to a website in Singapore if you Google that, SG Singapore. Ministry of Education, teach less, learn more. You could use that phrase to describe this image, where the role of a teacher over time has less value for their knowledge of the subject and more value for observing how students work together to bring more resources from around the world. So, my opinion is the value of a teacher's subject knowledge will be going down, while the value of their observation skills and their ability to put people together with information from around the world goes up. A change in the value of a teacher. That's a big idea. That's bigger than technology. And that's what's happening. He used to value his knowledge. He knows a lot about physics. He's the dean. Global expert. But you do not see him presenting his knowledge anymore. His knowledge is on the internet. Everything you want to know about physics is on the internet. The important thing for a teacher is how do you put students together so they challenge each other, help each other with a lot more learning than before. Here, I'll show you another image. Well, I should, because I do not speak Arabic, if you have a question and you would rather write it down for me and give it to me at the break, I will take your questions at the break. For those of you who don't want to ask questions right now, I can take them later or now. I can take any time. So let me show you one more image. Taking a test. We do a lot of testing in the United States. Test, 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 test. Do you have tests? Tests. Okay. So, what's the best way to manage a test? Yes. So I'll show you a test. I'll show you taking a test.
To lecture. It's impossible to lecture in that space. In fact, if you step in the classroom, you'll see students teaching each other, standing at these mobile boards that can be put anywhere in the classroom.
So there is a board at every table. And you often see students explaining to students. And he hears explanations he would never dream to use himself. He learns so much about how people learn by listening to the first-time learner explain things to the other first-time learners. He's fascinated. In fact, just to let you know who he is, have you heard of Facebook? He invented Facebook. Eric Mazur invented Facebook. The Twinklevoss twins, who hired Zuckerberg, who now is the CEO of Facebook, the Twinklevoss twins were in Eric's physics classroom, and he had Facebook. And the reason he had it is because he found out that more students would ask questions online than face-to-face. That's why he invented Facebook. And in fact, while he had Facebook, it all started at Harvard. Did you know? It all starts at Harvard with Eric Mazur. He collected 5,000 questions on Facebook. Unique, different. 5,000 questions. Usually in a Harvard classroom, his classroom, 10% would ask questions. But when you put in something like Facebook, you get close to 100% asking questions. 10 to 100. That's a big improvement. So I asked Eric, anything strike you? 5,000? Do you learn anything by looking at 5,000 questions? And he says, I've never heard of 80% of them in class. In 30 years of teaching, I did not know 80% of the questions. 30 years of teaching at Harvard, how do you not know your students' questions? Because they don't ask them in class. I am fascinated by that. It's not technology, it's information. Teachers need to know. In the current model, we value teachers for their subject knowledge. In this model, we value teachers for their knowledge of students' questions. So when a teacher graduates from university, they have subject knowledge. They don't know their students' questions. So the thing for a teacher is, how do I learn about all of my students' questions? That's what they don't know. That's what they need to know. To be a good teacher, I believe you have to know your students' questions. Immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, immediately. In my country, many teachers are not Eric Mazur. They do not know their students' questions immediately.
I have a question. Do you have this amount of questions online, or as you said, examples? They set it online. So not as a leader or teacher, how can I cope with all this amount?
Right.
How would I be fair for everyone? It's very difficult.
Right.
You can't do both. You can't do what I'm doing. See, I do not know the questions except yours right now. So if I'm busy sharing my knowledge, I cannot also know my students' questions. I can do one or the other. Every once in a while, one student will ask. That's okay. I can't have everybody asking questions. I won't get done. So to do it well, you have to completely change the classroom. So in Eric Mazur, he figured out that there are 7 problems in physics. And if I give you these 7 problems and you can solve them, you know everything in the subject. 7 problems. For example, the mathematical modeling of a launch vehicle to Mars requires a lot of physics. If you can solve that problem, you know a lot of physics. Gravitational fields, acceleration, velocity, thrust, torque, on and on. So he changed from delivering lesson plans to giving you problems in teams. And you, from the first day, you have to take one problem and start solving it. The answers are on the internet. Mathematical modeling. So if you shift the whole curriculum to a problem-based curriculum, then you have time as a teacher to listen to students' questions. It's your full-time job because they're working on problems. But to stay the same and do questions, I don't think it's possible. I haven't figured it out. Yeah. Yes. 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 He gives a test every day. He knows where every student is every day. I'll show you. You're making... Yes, you are right. You are absolutely right. But we can do that. So I'm going to show you how to do that.
Explaining the material to each other in their
Coming
own
up.
words. In AP 50, we have no exams.
Well.
Instead, we have an activity which we call the Readiness Assurance activity.
It's a test.
And the goal is to turn the assessment, which it actually is, into an opportunity for the student to learn and an opportunity to receive immediate feedback on that learning. Whenever we have such an activity, students come into class and they receive a certain amount of time, say 40 minutes, to work a number of problems on their own. Their goal is to do...
Okay. So this image, students are taking the same test. He wants to know, what have you learned since last class? Every class. Then the laptops are open because the test is on the laptop. So, no learning. This is not learning. This is measuring what you already know. My opinion is when you're taking a test, you're not learning very much. You're only covering material you were already supposed to know. No new material, definition of a test. Watch what happens next.
as well as they can on it, because it's 50% of their assessment grade, how well they do individually.
Same test.
But after that, the classroom environment changes completely, because students take that same set of problems, that assessment, again, but as a team. They see for each, on their screen, they see for each of the questions that they've answered, the answers of all of their teammates, and now they need to reach agreement on which of the diversity of answers is correct.
Okay. As soon as the students finish the test, they take the same test again, immediately. The second time they take the test, they take it as a team. They can discuss the test. They help each other. What is fascinating to watch is that when the teacher comes back, if the teacher corrects the test, comes back 2 days later with the test, gives back the test, and asks students, do you have any questions about the test? A student might ask a teacher once to explain something, but not 10 times. In this process of students helping each other review the test they just took without knowing the answers, you often hear students asking the same question over and over and over again because they really need to do that. But you cannot ask the same question over and over and over again in front of a group. It's too embarrassing. So learning in the second test, which is done by the team, there is a lot of learning. There is no learning when you take a test by yourself. He will even say that there's more learning in the second test than anything else in the entire class for some students. You don't even need technology to do that. You can just give the same test twice. No technology really needed. But the reason many teachers will not do that, even after they see the video, is because it represents a shift of control. And in my country, I believe the biggest reason we do not use technology well is teachers do not want to give up control. Teachers correct tests, not student teams.
I have a question for you. this learning, so to speak, is really basically teacher-based to student-based. And it has benefits.
Yes.
Because if the teacher acts like a facilitator rather than a authoritarian in a classroom, the students will learn better. But my question to you is, even though this is beneficial for the students both on different levels, from advanced to struggling, what about the constraints that we are given to the ministry constraints and requirements in grading? They are still stuck on numbers. As well as the school having another constraint, which is you have to work on this curriculum and you're given a certain time. This kind of learning opens up the avenue that the child's curiosity will lead them to learn even more than what is in your textbook. So how do you...
Oh, I've seen this. I have watched. This is amazing. So the ministry says you have to give every student a grade. Is that what you're... Every student... Same at Harvard. You have to give every student a grade. So the way that Eric does this, the first test by yourself is 50% of your grade. The group test is averaged with the individual score, 50-50. But if I were principal of a high school and my teachers said, no, we are not going to allow students to get any credit for the group thinking because we don't know if you really understood it or you just agreed. So some teachers do 80-20. 80% for the individual test, 20% for the group test. And of course, some teachers refuse to do it. You decide the balance of control. I cannot help you. You have to make that decision to fit your reality of grading. But the conference is growth beyond grades. And I like that. I really like the title, Growth Beyond Grades.
When you spend time teaching the inquiry, the student-centered,
Yeah.
that the assessment also assesses all those skills.
Yeah.
So basically, the assessment type also has to follow
Yes.
the student-centered way,
That's right.
which is happening in some programs.
Be
It's
consistent.
very important. You cannot switch from student-based learning to assessment that just, you want the textbook and just do it over. So it's sometimes unfair to say, because these students are being tested on the skills that they developed as they were learning.
Yes.
Why the assessments, what my colleague was saying, assesses towards the textbook and the chapter and whatever you have memorized.
That's the thing. That's what. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's the thing. When we choose the assessment forms to fit the child's learning style, whether he wants it project-based or presentation or a simple just make a different style, we have a good grasp on the child's learning. But at the end of the day, we have to try to correlate that kind of form of assessment with an old-fashioned traditional assessment. That's where we are struggling the most.
Right.
Assessment universities, which is a big problem because we teach for students to go to higher education, and unfortunately,
Well, I'm going to give you some more bad news about this. Oh, sure.
The problem is that we all face it. I came here actually, I wanted to find new skills for my students. And they're always discussing there's a gap between schools, university, and work. What we actually don't have are skills for our students, skills for people, for this generation. That we want them to be problem solvers, critical thinking. This teaches them that.
Yes. 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 No, we better figure out what are the skills. I'm sorry, did you want to?
I wanted to ask a question on this. I'm actually quite fascinated with this approach that Eric is using. My question regarding this, though, is around how does Eric know that what he's doing at the moment in this video,
Yes.
how effective it is?
Yes.
In the sense that, has he maybe, for example, had another class running beside it that he does not use
Yes,
this
he does.
particular approach?
Yes.
And then, yeah, that's really where I want, because I
Yes.
think that's the compelling argument here
Yes.
for me, how effective it is really in the
17 professors at Harvard teach Introduction to Physics. Physics is a big business at Harvard. He has the highest test scores on application questions, critical thinking, on standard tests. His students are 4 times higher. So the results are very good. They're very, very good compared to professors who do not do this. They're much higher. The bad news. The bad news is Harvard students have typically come from high schools that don't do this. And Harvard students expect a Harvard professor to correct the test. And when the Harvard students are told, you will be going over the test with classmates to get a balance grade yourself, they all do not like this because they're used to being the best student themselves. The culture of American education is I fight for my own grade. It's about me. It's about my grade. I have no interest in helping you. I need the highest grade to get into the best university. In fact, I hope you don't get a high grade because I want your spot at the university. So this is against the value system of a traditional school. And students, the bad news, is many students will say, my teacher is not teaching for 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks, until they realize that this is powerful. That there's a lot of resistance. Teachers resist, students resist. There is a lot of resistance. Now, Harvard does not have to deal with parents because parents send them away. But you have to deal with parents who will also resist. A student will come home and they'll say to their father or their mother, I have to share my test score with classmates. I want to get out of that class. And the parent calls the principal to get the student out of that class. But Harvard does not take parent calls. You already paid the bill. It's good luck. You know, you cannot bring this idea and ask every teacher to do this. Maybe one teacher? The teacher willing to do it for a year? Next year, another teacher? So I would not do this and require every teacher overnight to change. That would be too difficult. Okay. Yes, sir.
What is the disadvantage of doing or following this method, let's say, of testing in the opposite way? Yani start by doing the test as a team, then end by doing it individually?
Well, individually, as I said, you don't get resistance. Students have already accepted
I guess we can assure here that knowledge is acquired.
You lose, I mean, let me put one more new piece of information into conversation. After they take the second test, they're finished with the second test. Each table has to write a question.
There's a second step after the team test?
Yes.
Doing the test as a team?
The third, okay, first, individual test.
Yes.
Second, group test. Third, each team has to write a question. The most difficult question they can write that they can also answer. They have to be able to answer their own question. The question from this table then moves to this table. Each table gives the next table their question, written by students. What Eric Mazur realized is that students will ask more difficult questions than the teacher, typically. And students are more motivated to answer the question written by students because they know other students can solve the question. So there's a third round you don't see in the video. The opposite?
Yani we start by a teamwork.
Start
the test by-
Sorry. Yes. I have met teachers who do that.
Yes.
They reverse it. They give the group test first.
Yes. Then the individual.
Then a second test that's different.
Different, but targeting the same.
Yes. I have met
objective.
teachers who have done that, and they find that powerful. Also, another version, you give half the test, half, on Monday.
This is
The second half group on Monday.
50-50 in another concept.
Tuesday, you give the second half of the test. Individual first. But because you only gave half the test on Monday, and they discussed it, they do better as individuals on Tuesday, second half, because they were thinking about the first half to trigger the mind. You could do that too. So I've had lots of different versions of this as teachers have experimented. I like yours. I like your thinking. Give the group tests first. Different, I like that.
I think this will help also the teacher to measure how well they're teaching in class. Because if you test first individually.
I'm sorry,
I think using what he suggested, it will help the teacher to
Yes.
measure how
Yes.
well they're doing in class.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. I like his thinking. Yes. I'm going to tell Eric. Yes. Today.
We're going to use it.
Oh, way over here. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Could we bring the mic? Do you mind? Then everybody can hear you.
I believe if we start with the group assessment, we won't be sure that everyone thought about the question. So I think we need to give a little bit time for the students to think individually to make sure that everyone has thought about the question before they start doing it in groups.
So you're agreeing
I'm disagreeing with.
You're disagreeing.
I'm disagreeing. I think that if we start with the group work, how would I be sure that everyone thought and participated in it? But if we made it individually, like think, pair, then share.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we give them a chance to think, and then they share their thoughts.
I see. Do you want to answer that?
He will have the chance to think when he is sitting individually at the end to grab all the knowledge of the team and
knowledge to do the test.
I believe at the end it should be individual, but I believe also that it should start individually. It should start individually and end up individually.
Okay, I'll tell you what, if I may, because it looks like you've caused a stir. This kind of conversation where teachers have different opinions, I think is healthy.
Yes.
If I were running a school, I would allow you and you to run your own classroom the way you want, but you would have to listen to each other. So I like this kind of conversation back in your schools, where you allow for different opinions. Is that okay? We will agree to disagree.
I would disagree that the laptops are closed and the laptops are open when you mentioned. Because the technology tools that we use, at least in schools, help a lot, because what we're talking about here is feedback from each other, seeing how the other people think, and I think there are tools that a lot of the teachers are familiar with, free tools, where it helps and we can do things with the learner, more than when we can do with an assessment or informative assessment.
Yes.
Let's put it.
We're going to get to that a little bit later, if that's okay. I do, and you'll have to tell me if you agree or disagree. The question is, when you have people together, what's the best use of time? Of all the things you can do, 1,000 different things. When people are together, what's the best use of their time? I believe in Socrates. And Socrates said, the debate of ideas is the best use of time. So thousands of years ago, I'm going back to that time. The debate of ideas, I highly value. You are seeing the debate of ideas. It's very Socratic. Now, the laptop, when you need it to look something up, use a tool, absolutely, but not dominant. Yes. 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 Catalyst. Yes. I think we agree. Not that we have to, but I think we agree. Yes. Could you? Yeah, he's bringing you.
I actually teach computer science for grade 11 and 12. And I use the same thing in my class. And it has shifted because, you know, I teach different classes. And in one of my classes, I use the exact same thing. And it shifts the whole attitudes of learning inside the classrooms. And believe it or not, I have students who are coming for me to see me during breaks. They are challenging themselves to come up with difficult questions.
Yes.
And they try to kind of lead the way in the classrooms because they each have a way to lead the learning as well. So I find it very, very, very cooperative.
Yes.
And amazing, actually.
Yes. So CS50 is Introduction to Computer Science at Harvard. You know CS? You know David Mallon? Wow. Most Americans would not know. My son just graduated Harvard in computer science. He says David Mallon changed his life because of what you just said. David Mallon does not have rubrics on the final project. There's no rubrics. Rubrics, do you know what rubrics are? The word rubric? What do I need to get an A? Tell me what I need to do to get an A, that's what I do. No higher. The rubric stops the most creative student work. So David Mallon has no rubrics. And my son was so confused because all of his teachers had rubrics in high school. Now he has to live in a world with no rubrics. Changed his life. Now he does his best work. So rubrics, maybe we should get rid of rubrics. David Mallon got rid of rubrics. Is that what you're saying?
In the same, like I have the liberty to go beyond what the syllabus requires.
Yeah. I want you, yes. On my website, I have an interview with David Mallon. So November Learning, and then you go to resources at the top of my page, and I'm going to tell you, then you go to podcasts, and many, in fact, with Eric Mazur too. You can listen to my conversation with Eric Mazur is right there for those of you who want to listen. And one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my life is with David Mallon. So I asked David Mallon, what evidence, I could ask all of you, what evidence do you have that you are an excellent teacher? What would you show me? What would you show anybody? That you are an excellent teacher. David Mallon gave me an answer I have never heard. You can listen to the podcast. David Mallon said, he starts laughing. First thing he says is, I'm not a good teacher. He's the most popular teacher at Harvard and Yale. Wildly popular. And he says, the only evidence I would have is if a student assignment covered material I never taught in class. If they only gave me back what I taught them, then I have no claim to be a good teacher. Most American teachers would not say that. They would refer to a test, a project of students giving back what the teacher gave them, because that's what we define as good teaching in my country. David is on another level. And I asked my son, is this true? 850 students take his class every semester. It's a big class. And my son said, absolutely, all of his friends went beyond what David taught them. All of them. How do you do that? No rubrics. You cannot do that with rubrics. Rubrics mean your students only give you what you taught them. Rubrics. I also asked my son, what's the one skill David taught you that you think is the single most important skill you can use anywhere in life? And my son did not hesitate. He said, self-assessment. David Mallon requires that every student assess every project before they hand it in. before on 3 levels, not 1, 3 levels, you have to assess the effort. What did you do to prepare yourself for this assignment? Number 2, the quality of the work itself in the code. Third, David requires that every student has to identify what will the grade be from the course if I hand it in and the professor assesses what grade do I think I will get, what grade do I give myself. If they're different, you have to write a reconcile of why they are different. 3 things my son never saw another teacher require. Changed his life. Now he is responsible for assessing his own work and fixing it before he hands it in. So if you're going to teach one skill, it is self-assessment. Yes. Yes. There are some rubrics in the beginning. To be fair, you have to have a certain problem. It has to be solved elegantly, the fewest lines of code, and 5 languages. Oh my gosh, it's a difficult class. But as you progress, rubrics drop away. Once you start the application of knowledge, then there's no more rubrics. Rubrics are good for mechanics, basic skills. 1 and 1 is 2, rubric. But the application of why is 1 and 1, 2, no rubric. So rubrics are only helpful. There's good research on this. You can see a video. I'll show you. No. Pardon? We're okay? Okay. I'll show you a video of rubrics, the research in rubrics, YouTube, Dan Pink. Maybe you know Dan Pink, RSA, Drive. He wrote a book called Drive. So Dan Pink, I have an interview with him too. What motivates students? Why do students give up? Why do students not give up? That's an interesting question to me. Who gives up? Because another skill...
Our motivations are unbelievably interesting. I mean, I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find...
Dan, have any of you heard of Dan Pink? He's an American... Farouk? Okay. He's an interesting guy. Dan Pink has looked at the research of what motivates people to do good work. He comes up with 3 answers: purpose, autonomy, and mastery, which we can go over in detail, but I want to I interviewed Dan after reading the book, and I asked Dan, what's the most important skill? And he did not mention any of those 3. Not in the book. Dan says resilience, stick-with-itness is the most important skill. He knows people who are very smart, with high test grades, who give up. Other people don't give up. It's the people who don't give up, who persist, who he believes are some of his most successful friends, not the best test scores. It's his opinion. So you have to ask, if that's true, resilience, perseverance. So let me show you. This comes together.
Find the topic still so amazingly engaging
I'll make it
and interesting. So I want to tell you about that.
I'll show you.
Science is really surprising. The science is a little bit freaky, okay? We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think. There's a whole set of unbelievably interesting studies. I want to give you two that call into question this idea that if you reward something, you get more of the behavior you want. If you punish something, you get less of it. So let's go from London to the mean streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the United States. And let's talk about a study done at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Here's what they did. They took a whole group of students, and they gave them a set of challenges. Things like memorizing strings of digits, solving word puzzles, other kinds of spatial puzzles, even physical tasks like throwing a ball through a hoop. Okay, they gave them these challenges, and they said to incentivize their performance, they gave them 3 levels of rewards. Okay? So if you did pretty well, you got a small monetary reward. If you did medium well, you got a medium monetary reward. And if you did really well, if you were one of the top performers, you got a large cash prize. Okay? We've seen this movie before. This is essentially a typical motivation scheme within organizations, right? We reward the very top performers, we ignore the low performers, and the other folks kind of in the middle, okay, you get a little bit. So what happens? They do the test, they have these incentives, here's what they found out. 1, as long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected.
Okay, so rubrics work for basic skills.
The higher the pay, the better their performance. Okay, that makes sense. But here's what happens. But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance.
That's what David Malin would say. Once you get to the application of knowledge, the creativity, then rubrics or grading is counterproductive. It's well established. We need 2 different systems. Rubrics over here, self-assessment over here. Not one all the way through. We need to be more sophisticated, I believe, than we've been, at least in my country. I think we have underestimated younger children. I'll show you. May I show you? So I have a friend. Her name is Kathy Cassidy. And she teaches grade 1 6-year-olds in Canada. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, the middle of Canada, very remote farming region. And she has a class Twitter account. And on the class Twitter account, she is following 5 classrooms around the world. She is following a classroom in Vietnam, Argentina, Italy, the west coast of Canada, and the United States. So every week, her students in a team go and see what the students are doing in Vietnam, Argentina, and Italy, and she sends them. So they look at what these children do. They play with robots. They protect their eggs. They build a video camera out of junk. So her children see the boy in Vietnam build the video camera, and they go to Kathy and they say, "We want to build a video camera out of junk." And she says, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. And the children say, "That's okay. We will Skype the children in Vietnam. They will teach us." We don't need you. So they make a conference call with the children in Vietnam, and the children in Vietnam teach the children in Canada how to make the video camera. She doesn't even think children can make the video camera who are 6 years old, but they can. They tell her they can. She doesn't tell them. I think we should do more of that. Children, that gets them ready for David Mallon and Eric Mazur, because you're going to have to find your own resources around the world. I like what she's doing because she's teaching children to build their own network of learning without her direct teaching. Some direct teaching, but not only direct teaching. And she learns that she has underestimated for 30 years. She's been wrong. Children are much more creative, much more capable than she ever thought. But not if she has this lack of connection. If she only has her own students in her own classroom, she would never learn that they want to build video cameras. Yes. Yes, scaffold. Yes. 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 Ah. Oh, it depends. Do you know Khan Academy? So, I have taught teachers in mathematics how to use Khan Academy. And I walked into, a teacher invited me 6 months later to her classroom, and there is a 10-year-old doing three-dimensional mathematical modeling. She has no idea, no scaffold. She doesn't even understand what he's doing. But with Khan Academy, there is no limit to how far he can go. So I do not believe any longer that teachers have to provide scaffolding. Teachers have to empower children to have no limit on what they can do. That's different than scaffolding. If she did the scaffolding, he would never be doing three-dimensional mathematical modeling. Khan Academy, for those of you who don't know, and it's based on mastery. It's based on one of Khan Academy. Academy. I have to spell academy right. So with Khan Academy, if you don't know, it allows children to take something such as mathematics. Or do you know Wolfram Alpha? Do you all know Wolfram Alpha? Oh, this is maybe the most important website in K-12 education is Wolfram Alpha. It's a knowledge engine. This is a knowledge engine. This is the end of civilization. This is so powerful, you will either want to block it and not have any student touch it, or you will think every student has to have it. You will not be neutral. It will be this extreme. The response in any group of teachers with whom I've met, there are people who want to block it and people who want to use it. Do not fight with each other. Agree to disagree. Okay, here we go. I can take any math problem. Doesn't matter. 6x squared. Your math teacher? 6x squared plus 2 equals 8. And then I have to put in solve or derivative or integral, depending on what level of mathematics. The same equation could be a calculus problem or it could be an algebra problem. So you have to tell the engine what level of mathematics am I on. Solve is algebra. You're solving for x. So as soon as you do that, it gives you the answer, +1, -1, gives you the parabola, and over here, if I click on this button, it will give me every single step to every single problem in the entire curriculum. AP Calculus, everything. Trigonometry, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, elementary mathematics. Every problem you give children, I can type it in and get every step to every problem. Why would a teacher correct homework anymore? It'd be a waste of time. So either block it. The scaffolding is on the internet. So the here, I'll show you. So in the new world of information, I'm going to take another tool, screencasting tool called Jing. And I'm going to use it now to explain my thinking as a student. So with Jing, I can make a box only on the part of the screen I want to focus my work. And then I can make a video. So today, I have to solve this equation, and I get two answers, +1, -1. I think the reason I get two answers is the exponent. Because if x is a -1 to the power of 2, it's a negative times a negative, that's a positive. So that means 6 times 1 + 2 = 8. It works if it's negative. If it's a positive 1, raised to the power of 2, it's a positive times a positive, leaving a positive. So 6 times 1 + 2 = 8, it works. I can explain why the graph is shaped this way. Finish. I finished my recording. And so today, I have to solve this equation. And I get two answers. +1, -1. So the teacher, in a world of Wolfram Alpha, gets the explanation of the student thinking. Why did they get those answers? Before Wolfram Alpha, with Jing, you give the answer. The teacher doesn't know you're thinking. I want this. I have to have it. How many of you teach your students to use Wolfram Alpha? Oh, this is a big deal. Chemistry? Here, I'll show you more. Physics? This goes on and on. So if I take, I make a mistake. One hydrogen plus 1 oxygen, and I say, as a mistake, that gives me water. Well, it doesn't give me water. I can't have one hydrogen and one oxygen. That's not a balanced equation. So if I type in one hydrogen, one oxygen, Wolfram Alpha sees what I'm trying to do and gives me the correct equation. All across chemistry. Then it gives me more information than I probably need about water. Down here, you see all this data about water. Instant. Those are all links. Or let's say, this is all in English, so it's not in Arabic. I'm really sorry about that, but hot dog, hamburger. Let's say two things. It's good at comparing two things. So I type in hot dog, hamburger, I want to compare, and it makes me charts. Gives me all these charts. Very different than Google. More sophisticated than Google. Look, charts, charts, comparing hot dogs, hamburgers. Very nice. Really, really nice. Now at the bottom, if you've never seen Wolfram Alpha, there is a sources button. And I can look at the sources. So, when I typed in hot dog, hamburger, Wolfram Alpha selected those sources. Those are all academic, reviewed sources. Only scholars have picked sources in Wolfram Alpha. This is not Google. It's all academic. If you had to read all of those reports, that's a couple thousand pages. That would take you probably 2 weeks to read. Wolfram Alpha read in a half a second, made the chart in a half a second of the data on hot dogs and hamburgers. I don't have to read a couple thousand pages. Wolfram Alpha does that. Just when. So, I have another interview with Stephen Wolfram, who is the British mathematician behind this. So I said, Stephen, this is not good. Teachers will think this is cheating. This is cheating. Get every answer to every problem, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. This is not good. And Stephen says, no kidding. That means instead of asking simple questions, we're going to have children design snack food for the space station. The application of knowledge. Because the basic knowledge will be presented to you. It's what you do with the knowledge, not the regurgitation of knowledge. It's over. The regurgitation of knowledge is over. Sorry. Or block it and keep the regurgitation of knowledge. Because this will kill any homework assignment, basically. I can just copy the answer. Okay.
This one saves you time by providing you with the necessary research.
Yes.
That's understood. It gives them more time for an application of use.
Yes.
But my question is that with this one giving me the basic rundown of knowledge, don't I usually get knowledge that is probably not related? I can make a connection when I do my reading. Not like I look up a subject like hot dogs and hamburgers. While I'm doing my reading, I get other information that I wouldn't. I'm not saying I want to agree or disagree with this guy. I'm talking about the idea. The idea that this guy is going to give me all the basics.
Yes.
Not something what I need just for hamburger knowledge. But if I open a book, and while I'm reading, there's other knowledge that might not be related, but because of what I'm reading, I'm starting to make connections. This is what I mean. This process that is needed in research and trying to link ideas, sometimes even getting ideas that might not be related, but somehow we see connections there. Wouldn't that kind of like kill it, or at least curb it somewhat?
I love your thinking. Underneath the search bar of Wolfram Alpha, there is an example button. I'm going to click on it. Examples. Then it gives me problems in different subjects. You want to see the juxtaposition of ideas that you would get in a book? This is 1,000 times more powerful. I have watched 12-year-olds in astronomy ask questions, and they started off in history because they will not stop. They're curious. They want to learn. You show them this table of contents, it's amazing. We need some children in the room right now. I will show you children who have how old are you? Do you want to come up and use it? Anything you want. You speak English? Fantastic. Just do anything you want. Watch. Just watch. What are we doing? Hang on for a sec. Coffee break? You take a break? Okay. We'll let him play. Yes? You play. This is what children do. They just walk up. We'll ask you later, okay? You'll be okay with it? Fantastic. Oh, we're supposed to take a break. I hope you come back. 11:30? Oh, what time is... Am I late already? What time do they come back? 11:30. 11:30. I'll try to make it more interesting when you come back.